Prunella Scales, the name once synonymous with laughter and grace, has passed away peacefully inside her London home at the age of 93. It was 2025 when Britain received the heartbreaking news that shook the entire nation. The statement read simply, "She passed away peacefully." But behind those soft, carefully chosen words lay a truth never before told. After years of quiet dignity and silence, her son, Samuel West, decided to break that silence. What he revealed about his mother's final days was not scandal or sorrow, but something far deeper, a portrait of love, endurance, and an artist's quiet farewell to the stage that had defined her very soul. Among the old photographs, smiling faces from Fawlty Towers, and the endless reruns that made millions laugh, another story began to emerge, a story hidden behind those famous smiles. In his post, Samuel wrote, "Our beloved mother, Prunella Scales, has died peacefully at home in London. She was 93, although dementia forced her to retire after nearly 70 years of work. She was always herself." Those words stopped a nation. They were not elaborate, but they carried the full weight of love, gratitude, and farewell. And then came the line that moved millions to tears. Mom watched Fawlty Towers the other day. It was such a simple memory, yet it carried the entire emotional truth of her life. Even in her fading days, she returned once more to the laughter that had defined her. British media mourned collectively. The BBC called her a national treasure. The Alzheimer's Society honored her courage for sharing her experience with dementia long before it was widely understood. They said she had helped the public see the illness not with fear, but with compassion. For Britain, her death marked more than the loss of an actress. It was the closing of a chapter, the end of a golden generation raised on discipline, language, and the timeless rhythm of the stage. But to understand what truly made Prunella Scales unforgettable, we must return to where it all began, to the small English village where a girl named Prunella Margaret Rumney Illingworth first fell in love with the art of performance. She was born on June 22, 1932, in Sutton Abinger, Surrey, a quiet English village wrapped in the hum of post-war life. Her father, John Illingworth, was a former army officer, stern, precise, and composed. Her mother, Catherine Scales, was an actress and writer of children's books. It was from them that Prunella inherited both discipline and imagination, the two forces that would define her life's art. When the Second World War broke out, the family was evacuated to Devon. While other children feared the sirens and the darkness, young Prunella observed everything: the silence of fear, the tone of command, the rhythm of waiting. Those small details, she later said, taught me how people move when they are afraid and how they hide it. That was where her acting truly began, not on a stage, but in the quiet endurance of wartime childhood. After the war, she attended Moira House School, a strict all-girls institution in Eastbourne, where she learned that discipline was the highest virtue. She joined school plays and fell deeply in love with Shakespeare. But while others memorized lines, Prunella studied rhythm, how words breathe, how emotion pauses between syllables. She would later say, "Acting isn't about remembering lines, it's about remembering the music behind them." In 1949, at just 17, she won a scholarship to the Old Vic Theatre School, the same institution that shaped the legends of British stagecraft. The training was merciless. Every gesture, every breath, every glance had to serve the truth of the text. Improvisation was forbidden. Emotion had to be earned and not displayed. It was there that she learned the principle she would follow for the rest of her life. Never act for applause, act for honesty. After graduating, she joined the Bristol Old Vic in 1951, one of Britain's most respected theater companies. At just 20 years old, she earned her first major speaking role as Lydia Bennet in Pride and Prejudice. Her lively energy and razor-sharp timing caught immediate attention. Audiences loved her wit. Directors admired her control. She followed that success with Hobson's Choice, where she mastered the fast-paced rhythm of working-class dialogue. Before every performance, she would stand backstage and count beats on her fingers, whispering the rhythm of each scene before stepping onto the stage. Like a musician tuning before a concert, that discipline, that silent ritual became her lifelong signature. And then in 1963, everything changed. During a stage production, she met a young actor, Timothy West. He was charming, intelligent, and carried the same devotion to the craft that she did. They spoke about theater as if it were a religion, about truth in words, about the sacred silence before applause. By the end of that same year, they were married. It was a partnership built not on glamour, but on mutual respect and shared purpose. Their home became a sanctuary of art and family, where the dinner table was as important as the stage, and laughter was rehearsed only by living it. Prunella's career was rising, but she moved quietly, deliberately, like a pianist, saving her strength for the grand performance she knew was still ahead. And that performance would soon come in a small, chaotic seaside hotel called Fawlty Towers. It was 1975 when the BBC first aired a small sitcom that no one expected to change television forever. Fawlty Towers, written by John Cleese and Connie Booth. Only 12 episodes were ever made, but each one was crafted with the precision of a stage play and the rhythm of a symphony. At the heart of that chaos stood the Fawlty Towers Hotel in Torquay, and within it, Sybil Fawlty, played by Prunella Scales. Sharp, elegant, witty, and endlessly patient, Sybil was the calm eye of the storm swirling around her husband, Basil Fawlty, played by Cleese. While Basil shouted, stumbled, and schemed, Sybil ruled through laughter, sarcasm, and one perfectly timed look. Her laughter, that unmistakable high-pitched, cutting giggle, became iconic. It wasn't merely funny, it defined her. It was the sound of intelligence cloaked in humor, of control disguised as mockery. Audiences adored her. They saw themselves, or their wives, their mothers, in that brisk woman who could hold a crumbling world together with a single glance. In interviews, John Cleese spoke of her with rare reverence. Every scene of Prue's was absolutely perfect. No one else could have brought Sybil to life like that. Off camera, her preparation bordered on ritual. She arrived early, reread the script again and again, and practiced her lines out loud to ensure the rhythm of her speech aligned with the rhythm of the scene. She treated comedy not as luck, but as architecture. Each pause, each syllable had its place, and she never missed a beat. Originally, Sybil had been written as a supporting role, but through Prunella's brilliance, she evolved into the show's emotional compass, the one person grounded in reason while everyone else spun into madness. She once said, "Sybil knows her limits, but she still tries to control the world around her." That insight revealed everything, not just about the character, but about the English women of that time. Practical, resilient, quietly powerful. Though Fawlty Towers lasted only 2 brief seasons, airing in 1975 and 1979, its impact outlived them all. It was later voted the greatest British sitcom of all time. More than 4 decades later, people still quote Sybil's lines by heart. For critics, Prunella was not just an actress. She was a technician of laughter, a master of timing. The BBC called her proof that discipline can create natural joy, and internationally she became known as the actress of rhythm, the woman who turned theater's precision into television magic. But after the laughter faded, Prunella did something extraordinary. Rather than bask in fame, she turned away from comedy and stepped into something far more demanding, the art of silence. As the echoes of laughter from Fawlty Towers slowly faded, Prunella Scales began the next and most profound chapter of her career. The world knew her as the woman who could make a nation laugh, but she was about to prove that she could also make it weep in silence. From the early 1980s, Prunella turned toward roles that demanded depth, subtlety, and restraint. Her performances became quieter, her movements smaller, her pauses longer, yet every gesture carried weight. Colleagues said she could express more with a glance than most actors could with a page of dialogue. In 1991, she took on one of the most daring roles of her life, portraying Queen Elizabeth II in Alan Bennett's play A Question of Attribution. It was a role few dared attempt. The Queen was still reigning, and audiences would recognize instantly if the performance rang false. But Prunella didn't imitate the Queen. She embodied her essence. Her performance was described by critics as still as a lake and deep as underground water. Every tilt of her head, every measured word radiated power without arrogance, loneliness without pity. Her performance earned her a BAFTA nomination and, more importantly, confirmed her transformation from a comedic icon into one of Britain's most nuanced dramatic actresses. One critic wrote, "Prunella Scales speaks little, yet expresses everything. Her silence has meaning." Before that, she had already captivated audiences in the beloved television series Mapp and Lucia, where she played the cunning Elizabeth Mapp opposite Geraldine McEwen. Their verbal duels became legendary, a dance of intellect and pride that showcased how women of their era fought social battles through wit rather than confrontation. Soon after came After Henry, a heartfelt drama exploring the relationships between 3 generations of women. As Sarah France, a widowed mother, Prunella played with a quiet tenderness that resonated deeply with viewers. Her performance balanced comedy and melancholy with such effortless grace that people forgot they were watching fiction. In 1992, she appeared in the Merchant Ivory classic Howard's End, sharing the screen with her real-life son, Samuel West. Their bond, so natural and intimate, blurred the line between acting and life. Audiences wept, not for the story, but for the truth that shone through it. A mother and son united not just by blood, but by art. That same year, she was appointed Commander of the Order of the British Empire, CBE, for her services to drama. 7 years later, she received the Freedom of the City of London, a rare honor that recognized not just her fame, but her integrity. Despite her accolades, Prunella never saw herself as a star. When asked about the commercials she filmed later in life, particularly her role as Dottie in Tesco ads, she laughed and said, "That advertisement paid for the plays no one went to see." The audience loved her for that honesty. She was practical, grounded, and deeply aware that art was not sustained by fame, but by work. In interviews, she often said, actors shouldn't exaggerate emotion. They should let the text speak. Her approach was like a craftsman's, deliberate, humble, meticulous. Every role she took was shaped, rehearsed, and polished until it carried the quiet perfection she demanded of herself. And yet, behind that professionalism was something even more powerful, her devotion to love and to the man who had shared every curtain call with her. In the later years of her life, when most would have withdrawn from the public eye, Prunella Scales stepped into an entirely new kind of spotlight, one defined not by performance, but by presence. Together with her husband Timothy West, she embarked on what would become her most personal and heartfelt project, Great Canal Journeys. This series began in 2014 on Channel 4 as a modest travel documentary about canal boating across Britain and Europe. But what unfolded on screen was not just travel. It was love, memory, and time itself slowly passing on calm waters. The two actors, long admired for their classical careers, were suddenly seen as two ordinary souls. No scripts, no lighting, no characters to hide behind. Just Prunella and Timothy, navigating narrow boats, ancient bridges, and the winding waterways that mirrored the rhythm of their long marriage. Each episode captured fragments of tenderness, a shared laugh, a forgotten word, a gentle touch across the tiller. Audiences didn't just watch, they felt the love that endured between them. The series soon became a cultural phenomenon, a reminder that devotion, when lived truthfully, is more moving than any performance. Yet behind that serenity, a quiet battle had already begun. In 2013, before the first episode aired, Prunella was diagnosed with vascular dementia. Instead of hiding it, she and Timothy made the brave decision to make it public. Their choice changed lives. Families across Britain found comfort in seeing dementia not as a curtain of shame, but as a shared human journey. As the series continued, subtle changes appeared. Prunella sometimes forgot the name of a place or repeated a story. There were moments when she paused a little too long, staring out over the water, as though the memories she sought were somewhere on the horizon. But to viewers, these moments weren't sad, they were profoundly human. Timothy remained by her side through it all, patient, gentle, guiding her hand on the rudder when her memory faltered. In one unforgettable interview, he said, "I'm gradually losing the person I love, but I'm still lucky to be traveling with her." That single sentence brought a nation to tears. It wasn't just the story of an illness, it was the story of enduring love. Their voyages became a meditation on life itself, slow, unpredictable, and achingly beautiful. Critics called Great Canal Journeys a love letter from Britain to the world. In an age obsessed with the spectacle and the speed, the sight of two elderly souls gliding quietly through sunlit canals became something sacred. Each journey was more than a route on a map. It was a passage through memory. Prunella often smiled as she recalled names of old colleagues from her Bristol Old Vic days. It was her way of keeping the theater alive within her, even as the fog of illness thickened. By this time, audiences around the world, from Australia to the United States, began calling them the nation's couple. People wrote thousands of letters thanking them for showing that love, when stripped of glamour, is what remains when everything else fades. During one filming, Timothy turned to her and said softly, "We're not looking for a destination. We just want to travel together." That line simple, heartfelt, eternal, became the soul of their story. As the years passed, the journeys grew shorter, but their meaning grew deeper. Even when Prunella's memory began to slip further, her spirit, that spark of warmth and humor, never left her eyes. Her smile, softer now, still lit up the screen. Viewers sensed that she still understood what the cameras could not capture, that she and Timothy were telling the final chapter of a love story that had lasted over 6 decades. When the pandemic arrived in 2020, filming paused, but Britain hadn't forgotten them. A photograph surfaced, Prunella sitting beside the window of her London home, reading old scripts, Timothy beside her, holding her hand. It was broadcast on BBC Evening News, and across the country, people wrote that just seeing them together felt like hope itself. Then, in 2024, came the news that broke a nation's heart. Timothy West passed away at the age of 90. In a short statement, their son, Samuel West, said, "Father lived his life for art and for mother." Soon after, he shared that his mother still smiled every morning, tending to her garden, often watching old footage of their canal journeys, sometimes laughing, sometimes falling silent, but always peaceful. 1 year later, Prunella Scales followed him, passing away quietly in her London home at 93. Their deaths, exactly a year apart, were seen as the perfect final act in a lifelong duet. For those who had watched them, it was as though she simply sailed after him, down the same calm canal, into the same light. Across Britain, tributes poured in. Actors, directors, and everyday viewers shared their memories of Sybil Fawlty's laughter, of Prunella's grace, of that unforgettable image of her and Timothy gliding beneath an old stone bridge. The Alzheimer's Society wrote, because of her openness, thousands found the courage to speak about their condition. She didn't use performance to conceal her illness. She used it to illuminate truth. And perhaps that was her greatest legacy. Not the applause, not the awards, but the quiet way she turned her own fading memory into a mirror for others, reflecting love, patience, and dignity. In one of the final episodes of Great Canal Journeys, as the sun set over the still waters, Prunella said softly, almost to herself, "The thing about water is, it keeps moving, even when you don't." Those words now echo as her parting gift, a reminder that life, like water, carries us onward, beyond the pain, beyond the curtain, into peace. Today, when the world replays the laughter of Sybil Fawlty or the tenderness of Great Canal Journeys, it isn't just remembering an actress. It's remembering a woman who taught us that discipline and art can live alongside kindness and love. That growing old is not the ending of life. It's the continuation of it, sustained by devotion and grace. So if you ever laughed at her wit, or wiped a tear watching her and Timothy hold hands on their small boat, take a moment and remember her. Remember the woman who turned the art of acting into the art of living.